All right, cool. Let's pray. Father, we just thank you so much for another new day to live and breathe and move and have our being in you. You are so good, Father. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you just for this moment. Thank you for bringing us through the parts of this week that we've already come through so far, and just for your continued presence in our lives and in our businesses, Father. Right now, God, you already know we invite you into this session. We pray, Lord, that you would help everyone who is listening, either live or to the recording, to hear exactly what you have for them to hear as it relates to their business, specifically as it relates to their launch strategy and all of the things, Father. I thank you, God, that you are our help with everything related to our business, the specific areas of our business that we need help with, Father. So I just thank you that you know what each and every person needs and that we all receive that today. I thank you so much for Taylor. And I just thank you, Lord God, for blessing her and keeping her and just blessing her abundantly. For what she's doing today in training us. I thank you, Lord, that you will speak through her and that this is just going to be such a great time, Father. We thank you for this fellowship. We thank you for your presence dwelling here in our midst, wherever each one of us is in the world right now. I just pray that your presence would be in our midst and just let this be a good time. We love you. We thank you for everything that you're going to do through Taylor and through the conversations that we have in this training in advance. We praise you. We love you. We appreciate you. And it's in the name of Jesus that we pray. Amen.
Yay.
Yay. Sorry, I accidentally muted you. There we go.
Oh, you're good.
All right. I'm going to mute myself. Oh, no, I'm not going to mute myself yet. Okay, I'm still new at this. So without further ado, let me introduce to you this amazing powerhouse of a human being who I am very, very blessed to call my friend. Let me pull up her bio real fast. So Taylor is a digital nomad and online marketing entrepreneur focused on helping businesses have 5+ figure launches. She is a marketing strategist who helps content creators and entrepreneurs monetize their platforms by creating and selling digital products. She is a multilingual graduate of the Wharton School with professional experience in Latin America, Europe, the US, and Asia, producing sales and marketing campaigns for a range of clients from small organizations to hypergrowth, tech, and Fortune 500 companies. So Taylor, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy to have you here today.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's see. Can y'all see my screen? I guess I can also pull up the chat as well because I want it to be super interactive. So you guys can interrupt me or post a question or comment at any point, and I'm gonna also just put a lot of questions. But yes, I'm super excited to be here. I've been a fan of Big Idea Food for a while, and like she said, we were roommates last year, and actually I reached out to her about being roommates. That's a whole God story. But okay, so today we're going to talk about how to launch online and how to create new income streams. My brand is called Make Moves, so I call everything, like in this case it would be Make Moves Masterclass. It's one of my master classes that I updated quite a bit because I wanted to put some more information in this one for you guys, but hopefully it's super helpful for you. So obviously we know your names, but let me know in the chat in case we haven't met before, like what's your city, what's your brand, if you have a brand. If not, it's totally fine, but like mine is called Make Moves, hers is called Big Idea Food. I'm interested to see what other brands or what cities you guys are in tuning into from. Let's see. Okay. Her therapy space. Oh, I have a client who's a therapist. Tamboy, Mommy Gang, Blooper. Okay, everyone seems to have what do you call it? Have brands. Oh wow, Germany. Okay. I think I may have met you before. Okay, we have Germany, France, Virginia, DC, Missouri. Okay. Let's see. So you can keep doing that. And also I wanted to know, are you a side hustler? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a content creator? All three. Which one of these do you guys consider yourself? And this is, I think, what it says on the cover of Big Idea Food, if I'm not wrong, Marlena, you have those three categories on there. Okay, so let's see, we have some entrepreneurs. We have all three. Makes sense. A lot of people are going to be all three, myself included. Side hustler turned entrepreneur. Okay, yes, we love to see it. Okay. Instead of content creator, it's a dreamer. All right. And then what is the thing that you want to monetize? So do you have a certain brand? Some of you guys have brands. Do you have an audience? Do you have a platform? Like, what is it that you're trying to monetize? And it could be all three. It might be the exact same three. Maybe you're not even sure yet and you're still in the process of building out your brand or your platform, which is also totally fine. But if you already know what it is you want to monetize, let me know just so I can get a better idea of what it is that people are working on. Okay, brand and platform. And if you're not sure, I'm going to go over it in a minute anyway. But all right, so most people, they're like, I want to monetize this thing. I'm a side hustler. I'm a content creator. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to monetize whatever it is I have. But either I don't know what it is I want to sell. Like, I don't know. Should I do consulting? Should I do coaching? Should I do a course? Should I do a new online community? Or people will say, I tried to sell something and it didn't sell. I got 0 sales or only got 1 sale. So now I don't even know if my offer is good, or maybe I didn't even try to sell it because I'm still just not sure if this is even the right thing. Let me know if y'all can relate to any of these. You could put, I guess, 1, 2, or 3 if whichever one relates most to you. Okay, let's see. Denise is sending books, writing workshops, coaching sessions. Shayna's monetizing her brand and platform. Vanetta's talking about her last launch. Okay, and mind you, I've had people in all 3 of these, and I've been in all 3 of these, so this is like a no judgment. It is what it is, and we'll talk about it right now. So, with that said, imagine if you knew, number 1, exactly what you want to offer, so you don't have to be like, I don't know what to sell. Like, imagine if you just knew what it was. Imagine if you knew how to make that launch line up with your lifestyle and actually work for you, so it's not this entirely stressful thing, which is a big problem in our industry. And then number 3, imagine if you knew the exact mindset that you need to make sure your launch is successful. We all know, like, if you run a small business, your team is your biggest asset. And if you're a solopreneur or entrepreneur yourself, you are your team, you're your biggest asset. So having that mindset to make sure you're successful, that's super, super important. And I saw we have a therapist in here, and obviously everybody's here with Big Idea Food. So we already know how important mindset is. And so essentially that's my goal for today. So my goal for today is that you know what you want to offer, that you can decide which launch style works for you. It's not the same for everybody. And that you know how to make sure your launch is successful, especially in regards to your mindset. Okay. So she kind of introduced me already, but in case you didn't know, my name is Taylor. As she said, I went to Wharton School. I also used to work at Google, NBC, Mindvalley, a bunch of startups. And essentially, I was always doing marketing or sales. But to be more specific, I consider myself an online entrepreneur, meaning I help people monetize specifically who want to sell something online, which all of a sudden seems like everybody. But when I used to say this slide, it was a new thing. I'm what we call a digital nomad, which means I can pretty much work from everywhere or anywhere. So as long as I have internet. In this case, I think Marlena may have actually taken this photo. This was in Atlanta a little over a year ago. Now we're in quarantine. I feel super blessed to be able to continue working, even have more work, while a lot of people are displaced right now because of everything going on. And even in normal circumstances, because I'm a nomad, I'm able to travel and work from a lot of places. So I feel super blessed by that. And that's my lifestyle. We'll talk about how to align your launch with your lifestyle later, but that's just something. Yeah, Marlena, I think you did take this photo. Who would have guessed at that time that I'd be doing this with you? Okay. And just to summarize my background, pretty much, I help people monetize their platforms so they can create multiple streams of income. And as she said, like, I help people do 6-figure launches, 5-figure, 4-figure, anything and up. And I've literally helped dozens of people. I've helped them launch courses, communities like Big Idea Food, online businesses, anything online. I've probably helped someone do it, including a lot of the people you probably know, which you'll see in the next slides. So just to summarize, the 3 secrets that we're going to cover is how to make sure you have the right offer, how to make sure that your launch actually fits your lifestyle and what you want to do, and then how to make sure your launch is successful. Okay, so just to make sure you're with me, because I know that's a long intro, let me know in the chat, just say make moves so that I can know. And I'll just see if I missed anything. God is so dope. Keep me knowing. Let's see. Okay, awesome, thanks. And again, feel free to interrupt me at any point, but I'll go ahead and get started. So, how to decide the right offer. So most people think that they need to create an offer based on whatever it is they're good at. I'm sure y'all have heard this, like, you know, you're so good at cooking, you should teach people how to cook. You know, your mom or your boyfriend, whoever tells you you're so good at this thing, you should start charging people for it. Like that seems to be like one of the go-to things of how you should make money. But the truth is, the right offer is not necessarily the one you think you're good at. It's the one that people are already coming to you for. So a lot of times with my clients, they'll end up monetizing on something that they don't even necessarily feel they're that good at, or the thing that they are super good at, people don't even come to them for that. But the thing that you want to monetize is what people are already coming to you for. So in summary, you want to give people what they want, not what you want them to have or what you think they want, but you want to give them what they want. So what does that mean? Essentially, it's what people are coming to you. And if you think to yourself, like, okay, well, I don't necessarily have a brand yet, or I don't know what it is people come to me for. Like, there is no specific thing that everyone knows me for. They come to me or ask for help with. If that's you, there's no problem with that. But you want to start announcing what you're working on. You want to start being known for something, and not in a way where you're forcing it. Like, oh, everyone on IG is a fitness model, let me start posting about fitness. No, you want to start just announcing whatever you're already doing and seeing how that speaks to people. Whatever platform, whatever audience you have, just see how what you're already doing speaks to people. So here's an example. I don't know if you guys know her or not, but this is one of my clients. I've been on her team for a few years now. Her name's Tara Reed, and she has a company called Apps Without Code. So essentially, a few years ago now, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, she got laid off from her job. So if anybody here has been laid off, this is for you too. She got laid off from her job, and at the time she gave herself a certain amount of time, and she said, I'm going to create my own startup. I'm going to launch this thing. It was actually a really cool startup, but we won't get into it. But she didn't know how to code. She didn't know any tech stuff. She wasn't a developer. But as she was launching her startup, she just created a blog. So that was her platform. Her platform was her blog. She didn't have a brand. She didn't have an audience. She just randomly created a blog and started writing about what she's doing. Like, this week, I'm launching this in my business. This week, I'm trying to figure out this. This week, I don't really know how to code, but I found this way to do this and that. And eventually, people started asking her, because she was posting consistently and she was putting her blog like in a lot of tech places online. People kept asking her, wait, how are you building this? Like, how are you trying to make a startup and you can't code? Like, I thought you have to either pay a developer, have a tech person on your team, or be a coder. Like, how is this possible? And essentially, people kept asking her that so much that she just made a workshop about it. She's like, here, I'm gonna give you away this free workshop. Here's how I do it. But people still wanted more. And so, long story short, now we have a course. It's called Apps Without Code. We literally teach people how to create your app and create a business around it. It's an 8-week course, and it's been, I want to say, 4 years now. We're at $2 million. And mind you, she doesn't walk away with $2 million, but our company does. And all this just happened because she was posting about what she was working on. She picked a platform, just let people know. And the thing that she thought she was going to do, which is launch her startup, was not even the main thing that made her money. What made her money is people asking her how she did it. And now that's her school, and that's her new income stream. Let's see. Marlene said, bring people into your story behind the scenes is so powerful and so engaging. Yes, that is very true. And so if there's anything, if you already have a brand, or, well, let's see, if you don't have a brand, there's whole workshops, Marlene probably has a few, that can help you figure out how to create a brand or audience. If you already have something or you're trying to figure out, you can start announcing what you're doing now and just see how people respond to it. So another example of that, I have another client. He is British, and opposite of her. So in her case, you know, she was laid off and she was trying to figure it out. Like, she needed to make money. In his case, he's already an entrepreneur. He does consulting for different islands on sustainability. So all his clients are people in islands, governments, nonprofits all over the world. And so last year, he was like, you know, I want to make a conference, but I can't because everyone's everywhere all over the world. So what I'll do is I'll make an online conference. And so on his own platforms, like on Twitter, all his social media, on Medium, whatever, on LinkedIn, he started announcing his online conference. And this was just something he was doing for his clients because most people in his industry have in-person conferences and he couldn't. A year later, when COVID happened, all of a sudden, everyone on LinkedIn, everyone on Twitter starts asking him, hey, James, what are some tips for creating an online conference? So many people started asking him that he said, you know what, I'm just going to make a course about it. And mind you, the people in his course are older people who work at nonprofits or governments who don't really know how the internet works, and they're trying to figure out how to not lose their jobs and how they can move their in-person conference online. Now we did a 40K launch, I want to say 2 months ago, Yeah, and in 2 weeks we made 40K just because people kept asking him this, and we decided to put some content together. So the moral of the story is give people what they want. Make sure that you listen when people keep asking you something. And again, these are people who you want to work with, not your mom, not your best friend, not your boyfriend, like people in your audience who are people you'd like to work with. If they keep asking something, if they keep coming to you for the same thing, take note of that, because that might be the thing that you need to start figuring out how to monetize. We'll talk about how to figure that out in a second. But for now, question for you guys: what is something that people constantly come to you for or ask you for help with? Oh, you say you're gonna start all over again. I mean, I'm restarting every day, honestly. Let's see. But is there anything that you guys have where people always say, hey, can you help me with this? And of course, people aren't gonna say, hey, Marlena, can you make a 6-month course that and charge this amount and teach this curriculum? That's not how they're gonna phrase it. You have to test it and do your own work. But if everyone keeps saying, how do you build your app without code? Or how did you create your conference online? And multiple people on multiple platforms or in your audience keep asking you, and they're the type of people you want to work with, that's a good sign for you. Okay, so Tracy said nutritional advice and programs. Then we have editing, editorial work, storytelling, creative ideas, storytelling. Okay, now storytelling is super powerful. That's a whole industry in of itself. And I think Maya's talking to you in 2 weeks about storytelling, so I'm not even gonna touch that. But in summary, if you already know what people are coming to you for, that's your first clue. Okay, this is what people are coming to me for. This is what I might be able to monetize. But now you're like, all right, well, people are asking me about storytelling, and they're asking me about fitness workouts and writing workshops and editorial work. But how do I know they're actually going to pay me? Like, how did they actually get from 0 to 40K in 2 weeks, or 0 to 2 million in 4 years, whatever it is? How do I know they're going to pay me? Here's what I'm going to call secret 1.5, like part 2 of the first secret is how to make sure people are actually going to pay for your offer. So most people think they have to have their digital products, or it could be a physical product. They think they have to have everything ready before they launch. Like, I can't announce my course, or I can announce my community, or I can announce my book, whatever it is, until it's finished writing, until everything's put together and everything's perfect. But that's not really true. The truth is, you should actually create your digital product after your launch. And if you're doing a physical product, then we call it like your minimum viable product. So like the first version of your physical product. If there are any people here who have physical products, let me know in the chat because I can talk more about it. But most of this is tailored to digital products. It's very similar though. But essentially you want to create it after you do your launch. You don't want to put this pressure on yourself to have everything created and done and perfect, and you don't even necessarily know if people are interested in it yet. So then how do you make sure people are actually interested in it? You do something called pre-selling. And if you're pre-selling for a digital product or a digital service, you pre-sell during a content event. What is a content event? A content event is literally a live event, has a beginning and an end, and you give away free content. So for example, this exact format we're doing now, this webinar, this is a perfect content event. If I were selling something, which I'm not, so don't worry, but if I were, this would be the perfect thing. It started at 9 a.m. my time, it ends at whatever time, and maybe at the end I could sell you into my course or my coaching or whatever offer I would theoretically have, right? Or you can do a challenge. You guys have seen this, like the 10-day fitness challenge, and then after the challenge, if you got results, then they'll sell you into their like 8-week boot camp or whatever it is. Or maybe a summit. I did an online summit back in April, and every single day we had a different theme. It started on Monday, it ended on Friday, and then at the end of the summit, I think she was selling something. I can't remember what it is now, but or maybe even like in the case of Marlena, she did hot seats or phone calls where from this day to this day, I'll do free phone calls. I'll give you content. I'll answer your questions, whatever it is. There's a start and an end date. And the purpose of it is to give away free content so that you can then sell something at the end of it. So now you're like, okay, I know what my people come to me for. I know they might be willing to pay me. I'm testing it with my free content event. But if my actual service or if my actual product isn't ready, how am I actually going to make money though? Okay, again, it's pre-selling. And here's what I mean by that. If you have a digital product, you're going to pre-sell, which means you make a sales page, a page that literally has these 5 things. It has a title and a price. It has a deadline to join. So let's say you're doing a course. You might say the deadline to join my course, to enroll, let's say it's Sunday. You make it up, but people need a deadline. People literally, statistics have shown, people don't do things unless they think there's an end or a consequence or a deadline. So you need to say, let's say Sunday is the deadline to join, but it actually starts August 1st, for example. That means you set expectations. They know when they have the deadline to join, but you also have a buffer between the deadline to join and the start date where you can kind of analyze and figure things out and see if it meets your goals and that type of thing. You need to have a place to accept payment, because the only way to know if people are willing to pay is if they pay. If people say they're going to pay, if people say, oh, I would pay this amount, you can do all those surveys, like how much would you pay for this or that? No, until they actually put their credit card information in, you don't really know if they're willing to pay or not. That's the only way that you will know. And if they do that, what should happen is they should get this automated welcome email that says, you know, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you in Big Idea Food Tribe. We'll get started August 1st or whatever it is. And that's the best way to figure out if people are willing to pay. So you have a deadline, and you have a start date. And let's say you make a goal for yourself where you say, if I get 10 people, if I make 10K, so 10 people at $1,000 by my whatever deadline I make up in my head, then it's worth it for me. So I'm gonna sell this, pre-sell it, put this into my sales page that I promote after my free content event. And if I get enough people, then I have 2 weeks until August 1st where I can actually run and put my course together, at least the first module that people will be in the course. You don't have to have everything figured out, but you just want to pre-sell it before you really spend effort, time, money, and emotions building something. And if no one buys it, what happens then? We'll talk about that in a second. But first, just understand in general, the idea of pre-selling is having some sort of sales page at the end of your content event. So I know you guys are all familiar with Big Idea Food, and Marlena, you can tell me if I get anything wrong here, but I'm going to use her as an example. So you guys already know her brand, Big Idea Food. She had an audience, she had her email list. Her platform was email at the time, maybe still is, but she has a few platforms. But in this case, when she was launching this idea, the first thing she said is, okay, I'm going to do free hot seats. You guys have from now until whatever time you said, and this is when you can book a hot seat with me. And in those hot seats, she gave away free content. She answered people's questions, and she realized, okay, most people had needed help with, I forgot what it is. I'm gonna make it up. Like, let's say most people needed help with visioning. So then she took that data. She's like, okay, visioning, that's the main thing. And she said, I'm gonna create a webinar about it. She relaunched her list and said, here's my free content event number 2. It's gonna be a webinar. It's gonna start at this time. It's gonna end at this time. And during the webinar, she had a sales page. And I'm pretty sure this was the exact image of your sales page, where it's literally, like I said, the title, a place to put your payment information, and a start date. And as soon as you click, you choose your plan, you sign up, you get a welcome email that welcomes you to the tribe, whatever it is. And that's how she pre-sold this. So she knew before she spent hours and hours and hours agonizing over every single thing within the community, which she still does, I'm sure. She already knew, okay, X number of people, I can't remember how many it was, Marlene, like 60 or something people actually are paying for this. They already did it. I know they're willing to pay. Okay, so did this hit the numbers I wanted? Yes, it's worth it to me to continue on in this. So that's just one example that you guys definitely know. And then if you want an example just of a physical product, the only difference really is that instead of having like a start date and a deadline, the main thing you're listing is like the top features of your product and the ship date. So let's say you're selling a book, for example. You could make the top ideas of the book and when you're going to send it out. You don't have to have the entire book ready. You don't have to have every single thing, the number of pages, every single chapter outline, every single detail. You just need the top features when you're going to ship it out, and the exact same thing. And you can see if people are willing to buy it or not. And an example of that, this is a close friend of mine. She has an online store called Home and Aura. Right now, if you go to her website, you can buy a bunch of things for your room, like redecorating your room from plants to paintings and all these things. She ultimately wants to have her own products in the store, but before she spends the time and money to like get a warehouse and make her own products, she just wants to see if people in her audience are even interested in it. So she essentially got a few vendors, put a few products on here. She restocks based on what people order. She doesn't have her own warehouse yet, and she's just testing to make sure that people are actually willing to buy and what type of things they're doing before she spends time and effort to make it herself. And eventually she's going to create her own product line, in-house. But before she does all that and has a whole warehouse and all this with hundreds of thousands of dollars of products that she's not sure will sell, she's testing it by having this kind of sales page out. Okay, I know that's a lot. So in summary, the way that you want to make sure people are willing to pay, you want to pre-sell from your content events. So let me know in the chat, what are some type of content events that you can host for yourself? Oh yes, Kenyatta, she actually has a design background, just like Marlena. Their designs are amazing. Okay, Vanessa said webinars. What else? Is there any other webinar? I think is the most common, especially the ones that I've seen, especially most of my clients do webinars, or at least part of their funnel has webinars. Is there any other ones that stand out to you guys, like summits or phone calls, anything specific? Or even for you, Vanetta, do you know what your webinar could be about? Was it you who said fitness? Let me go back. Oh no, I don't think so. Oh, Kristen, that's funny. The name of my friend who runs Home and Aura's name is Kristen. For a physical product, do you do a content event? Okay, that's a whole different strategy. It depends on your audience and what specifically you're doing. You can do a content event, yes, but it depends. I can come back to you if I get a little bit more information on what your product is. Okay, idea workshops like webinars or phone calls. Vanetta, your webinar can be about tackling imposter syndrome. Yes, if you have people coming to you all the time saying how they don't feel worthy or this or that, even if they don't frame it as imposter syndrome, then you know that that's something. Okay, fitness day. Yeah, maybe you could do like a virtual fitness session for free, or like a fitness boot camp or something like that, for like a miniature one. Okay, your question is, what could your webinar be about? Sorry, Kenyatta, what was your topic? To know what your webinar can be about, actually, you don't have to answer that. It depends on what people are already coming to you for. If people aren't coming to you for anything yet, then you want to start announcing and start talking to people, and maybe even doing hot seats like Marlena started with. But the answer of what your webinar should be about is literally answering questions people are already asking. That's the answer. If people aren't asking questions yet, then we want to start figuring out how to brand and make content that gets people to start engaging and interacting, which I think someone else in another session with Tribe is going to talk about. Okay, mini courses about general information, hot seats. You need ideas for a book launch. Okay, Marlena could probably help you with that one, the book launch thing. So just to keep it moving, but you can keep putting your questions or your comments. I'm gonna keep responding. But now you might be thinking, okay, let's just say I figured out what my offer is. I figured out what my webinar is gonna be about. How do I actually launch that webinar or whatever content event I've decided? So that's secret number 2. Secret number 2, how do you actually launch? How do you make sure your launch fits your lifestyle? So most people think that they need to create a launch just like some other course or person that they see, like so-and-so made 2K in 2 minutes, or I just did Danielle Leslie's course and she said to send this number of emails at this specific time in this specific order with this type of webinar. So I just need to do that, and that's how I'm gonna launch. But the truth is, before you can even implement courses or copy what you see somebody else doing, which is not bad because copying what works is a good idea. But before you can do that, you need to make sure that you know where you are in your own funnel. So secret number 2, know where you are in the funnel. So this is a very simplified version of a funnel. A funnel literally starts with everyone. So like everyone in the world. And of course you can't sell to everyone. You don't want to sell to everyone because everyone is not your target audience. So you take everyone, then you factor out the people who are in your specific audience, people you want to serve. And then of all the people in your audience, whether it's your blog, your Instagram, your email list, whatever it is, your YouTube channel, your podcast, you take everyone in your audience and you convert as many as you can to customers who are actually now in your paid program or your paid coaching or your paid community, whatever it is. So you want to go from the top of the funnel, which is everyone, all the way to the bottom of the funnel, which is your customers. And essentially, there's many different steps that you can do in between this. And I think you already have somebody talking about ads and marketing in another session. So again, I don't want to go too deep into it. But if we could categorize it very quickly, it's everyone, your people, your paying people. And to be more specific, your actual funnel part about your launch is this part that's in the blue square, well, the dark blue square. So if you're trying to figure out how to create an audience out of everyone in the world, that's when you might want to think about free content or ads. And I know Abu's speaking next week about ads, but let's just say, for example, Marlena, she doesn't necessarily want to target an older atheist person who's retired and has zero interest in faith or business. That's not her audience. So she takes from everyone, she has her own audience, her own specific people. Let's just say it's women of color who want to be entrepreneurs of faith. She has those people in her audience. Then she takes those people and she introduces them to a content event. like we said, like a webinar, like a hot seat, or whatever content event you guys put in the chat. In order to get people to that content event, you need a landing page, which is literally just a page that promotes the event. The page that just says, come to my webinar, or come to my boot camp, or come to my hot seats, or come to my mini course about general nutrition info. Okay, Marlena. And now once you have people in the content event, as we said before, now you use your sales page, which is like a screenshot I showed you earlier, that has your actual offer, where you say, okay, to my people who came to this content event, if you want more, here's my offer, here's a membership community, here's the course, here's whatever it is that you're selling and how it'll help you. So you're trying to get people in that funnel, from your audience to your customers, using a content event linking to your offer. So here's an example of a content event webinar. Both these are webinars because they're the most common. The first one on the left is from the girl Tara, who was like my first example. And this is literally the exact landing page that we use that gets us like 6 figures a month, okay? It just says the title, here's what you're gonna learn, come with the app idea, build it, charge people, here's who I am, I'm a CEO, I used to work at these places, click here to join. That's it, it's super simple. Mind you, we've tested various versions of this, but in the end, it's just this page, super simple. This is how we get people to our webinar, and in the webinar is where we launch, or where we sell people into our actual course. This other one on the right, another one of my clients, she's a therapist and she's teaching other therapists how to grow online practices. I saw there was a therapist somewhere here in the chat. And so very similar, she has her company at the top, the Vita system, her title, she has a countdown for when the webinar starts, it's passed, so that's why it's at 0, and a place to save your seat. Super simple, we're just trying to get people to show up to our content event, okay? And then, yeah, so yeah, without getting too much detail into everything in the funnel, what part would you say you're in? So would you say you're in the part where you're still marketing to everyone and trying to figure out who your people are? Are you in the part where you're with your audience and you're trying to figure out how to get them into your customers? Or are you at the part where you already have paying customers you want to keep? So would you say you're in the version of everyone, an audience, or customers? Okay. And yeah, I've been in all of these places. You're outside the funnel. Okay. So then you're at the place where you're with everyone. So what you need to figure out is how to niche down and get to your own branding and your own clients. And I'm sure that there's people in here that can help you with that for sure. Audience and customers. Okay, Kristen. Tiffany says, everyone. Okay. So yeah, if people don't yet have their own audience, then you want to start thinking about what brand do I even want, and how can I get people there with ads or free content? Next week, you'll talk about ads, and I think the week after is about messaging. So you'll figure out how you can do that. And then if you're like Ashley, or if you're like Kristen, and you're like, I already have an audience, I just need to figure out how to get them customers, I would start doing these content events, and I would start talking to them and making sure you see and take note of what people are actually coming to you for. How do you label leads in this funnel? Well, there are a bunch of different categories in the funnel. So once you have audience, you have general audience and people who are actual leads, as in people who have signed up, seemingly interested to pay for something but haven't paid yet, and then engage. There's a bunch of different versions, but when you say leads, you're usually referring to potential actual clients, which could be anyone in your audience, depending on how you categorize your audience. I'm not sure if you answered this, but what site do you recommend for using webinars? Okay. So let me just go back to that for a second. So in summary, it doesn't really matter as long as you just have the right content on there. But this one, for example, is something called ClickFunnels. It's super easy to use. It's where you can link into any type of email platform so that they automatically get the welcome email and the countdown emails or whatever. This one we just made ourselves in Wix. So if you have Wix or Squarespace, you can use that too. I'd say probably my favorite one, but I'll write here, is either called Lead Pages, because you can make webinar landing pages and sales pages super easily there, and you can track it and get the data very easily. Or if you want to use whatever you're actually, like whatever software you're actually doing your webinar in. So in both cases, we use a platform called Webinar Jam to actually launch our webinar, and you can create your own lead pages there. You can create your own landing pages and webinar pages directly in the same thing. Sometimes people like to have a separate platform just because they don't want all their eggs in one basket, and they might want to create sales page and other things And so they want a separate software just for websites. But if you have something like Webinar Jam or something like Easy Webinar, then you can actually create your webinar landing page within that itself. But if you need more information, definitely you can respond to me after, Bree. But that was a good question. Okay, so we already answered this one. And now, last question is like, okay, how do I decide my actual launch style? So somebody asked me like, what if you already have leads? Okay, now I figured out what's the right platforms and all this stuff. So like, now how do I decide like, what are my steps for the launch? Like, what style do I want to do? So here's the thing. You want to choose a launch style that aligns with your lifestyle. What I mean is that most people, they schedule their needs to revolve around their launch. They're like, I want to launch a business. So what I need to do is this, this, and that. I'm going to like set off this amount of time and this is my schedule because this is when I'm going to launch. And they're like revolving their whole life around their launch. Happens to all of us. But the truth is you can actually do it the other way around. You can schedule your launch around your lifestyle. You can say, this is the type of life I want. I want to have this much free time, this much stress, this big of a team, whatever it is. And I'm going to choose a launch style and a business model that actually matches with what life I already know that I want for myself. So here's how you do that. There's two main, I would say, categories of launches. So there's evergreen and live. We'll start over here with evergreen. So evergreen launches, usually your content is pre-recorded. I'm referring to your content event. So if you have a webinar, your webinar slides are already done. You've already recorded it. Like, let's say I recorded this right now and I can just put it on autopilot. Or maybe if you're doing a fitness challenge, like a miniature fitness thing, 10 days to whatever, maybe you already have those emails or those videos or those workouts written down and recorded. But you're gonna have to continuously maintain it because you wanna make sure that even though it's already pre-done, you wanna make sure it's still working in case you need to edit something or update it in some way. But overall, your goal will be to have steady revenue over time. And if your evergreen launch is working well, you're basically making passive income. You figured out which webinar works best, you figured out which fitness trial works best, and now you just turn it on so that every week or every month or however often you want to do it consistently, it just automatically turns on. So anybody who comes to your list or comes to your page, they automatically get invited and it just goes on its own. You will want to maintain it regularly just to make sure it's still working, but overall, it's passive income for the most part. And so that's why like sometimes you'll see people that say, you know, I scaled to X million in X years. And that's because they figured out the right evergreen launch and it's just doing it on its own. It was a lot of work up front, but now it's passive. And now they're one of those people on Instagram sitting by a pool talking about, oh, I barely worked today. Look at me. That's probably because they spent years or at least months or hired a team to help them figure out their evergreen launch first. Alternatively, you have something called live launch. Your live launch is kind of like what you're doing right now in the moment. So it has a set start and a set end date. Like, you know what, these 2 months, I'm doing a webinar each week, or I'm doing hot seats and then a webinar and then a free challenge or whatever it is. It's very intense and it's in real time because you're analyzing and figuring out everything right now. So like Marlena, for example, she did her hot seats and immediately she took the data from her hot seats and said, I'm gonna use this in a webinar. Then immediately in her webinar, she's like, okay, this is what people ask me, so I'm gonna put this into my my launch of my membership community, and then I'm gonna relaunch the webinar and do it again, and based on that data. It's like super intense, but that's where you get a lot of revenue at once. Because if your launch goes well, you can pretty much make half or more of your yearly revenue at one time if you do it well. And of course, in both these cases, it's like if you do it well, and we'll get into what that even means. But yeah, so those are the two. There's one where it's like constant over time and one where it's like really intense but short term. So here are some examples of that. And literally I've worked with every single person on my slide except for this girl on the right, who I'll talk about in a second. But firstly, I used to work with Danielle Leslie. If anybody knows her, she has a program now called Course from Scratch, where she teaches you how to launch courses. And she has what we call an evergreen launch. What that means is anytime you join her list, anytime you stumble upon her website, her Instagram, there's a way where you can join her webinar within less than a week. And the webinar is super nice. It's been refined many times. It's high converting. She knows that you're very likely, once you join this webinar, to join her course at any time. So she doesn't really have to do anything because the webinar is set up. She is going to want to maintain it and just make sure it's still working, make sure there's no bugs in it, make sure maybe because of coronavirus, you might want to update the copy or add an intro to it or update it a little bit. But overall, it kind of runs on its own. And so when you see her saying, you know, my first 2 years, I went from 0 to, I think, 2 million. And my second 2 years, I went from 2 million to 11 million, because she had a system that was passively running and she just took the effort to make it bigger. But essentially, it's like little effort consistently over time. Versus on the right, Marie Forleo, and she's the one who I said, she's the only one who I haven't worked with on my slides. She has one huge launch a year. I think her launch is like 2 months at a time. And essentially she spends the whole year, like everything's driving to these 2 months. Instagram, website, all her platforms drive to this live launch. It's super intense. She has webinars back to back. She's live on Facebook. She's answering phone calls. She's answering text messages. Like, it's nonstop. But usually she makes 6-7 figures in that launch. Like, that's where, like, she has partners, everybody directs people to these 2 months. And then the next 8 months, she can chill. She can focus on writing her book. She can be with her family. She can do whatever she wants to do because she grinded really hard in those 2 months. So it's kind of up to you which lifestyle or which launch style works better with your lifestyle. And again, you can do multiple. A lot of times people will start with the live launch, figure out which thing works best, and then put that on Evergreen on autopilot so that it can run long term. Or maybe you don't have as much time and you don't have like the emotional bandwidth to deal with the intensity of a live launch, because it's very intense. And you say, you know, I'm going to do on Evergreen. I'm going to do a little bit each month and figure that out. And then whichever one seems to be working better on Evergreen, when I figure that out, I'll go hard and put it live for 2 months a year, 1 month a year, whatever it is. But those are the two main, I'll say, categories. And of course, there's different ways to do each type of launch, but those are the two main categories. And so, of course, my question to you is, what do you think aligns most for you at this moment? Like, do you see yourself doing more live launches or more evergreen launches, at least for right now? You can always change it or add to it or do both. But if you had to pick one right now for like the type of model that seems to fit best for what you want to do, would you say it's live or it's evergreen? Okay, a lot of people are liking evergreen, starting off with live and ultimately evergreen. Yeah, I think most of my clients, what I do, because we all have our specialties. My specialty is you start it live and then put it on evergreen, as you said, Bree. But it's interesting because a lot of people here are saying that they like to do evergreen. And it's funny because a lot of times we'll join these courses and stuff that are teaching you how to do live launches. And it's like, well, now I'm stressed and now I'm trying to do all these things because this actually didn't even align with my lifestyle and I didn't even realize it. Right, evergreen, so you can do other things. Yes, exactly. Perfect. So now, okay, this is the last question actually, because let's say you figured out your offer, you know what people are coming to you for, you know they're willing to buy it because you've pre-sold it, you've done your content event, whether it's evergreen or whether it's live, you have people that are starting to come in theory, but then you're like, wait, what if people actually don't buy during my content event? What if I do my live launch and I don't make 50% of my income? Or what if I do my evergreen launch and I'm not making enough to live off of passively and it just seems like it's more work than I thought? So that's our final secret. Exactly now that you know exactly how to set up your launch and what to offer, your next thing is like, how do you make sure your launch is actually successful? So most people think that the purpose of their launch is sales. And in the beginning, I asked you guys, like, have you ever felt like, oh, I tried to launch and I didn't get sales, so like, therefore I failed? I've had so many people come to me literally crying, and I've been this person many times, where it's like, I put this thing out there, it didn't sell, like, life is over, I'm a failure. And here's the thing, the purpose of your launch is not sales. The purpose of your launch is collecting data. Data is your goal, sales is like a byproduct. If I could make a workout analogy, it's like, your goal is not to lose weight or gain muscle. Your goal is to do these reps with proper form consistently. And if you can properly do your reps consistently, you will get more tones. But if your only goal is like, I want to see myself getting toned, and you don't see it in the first week, month, whatever, you're probably going to quit. So if you don't see sales immediately in whatever timeline you have in your head, you might quit. But the secret is, don't quit, and not just, hey, don't quit, keep going. But no, use data, and you want to pivot. You're going to be pivoting all the time, and you want to pivot instead of quit. And this is why, for example, I said the live launches are more intense, because you're going to be pivoting every 2 seconds. Whatever you think your people want is probably wrong. You're going to have to pivot real fast. And that's intense because you put a lot of emotional energy in this webinar and then people didn't buy it. And you're like, wait, now I have to redo my webinar. That's so hard. I have to do it by tomorrow because I already agreed that I'm doing another webinar tomorrow, or whatever it is. So it can be intense, but there's a way to do it with data. let's see. Marlene said, no one talks about how stressful live launching is. Yeah, for full disclosure, I'm in the middle of 2 launches with clients. I have literally a webinar right after this, and I've maybe slept 3 to 5 hours, like each night, the past week. And it's just like, it's a lot, but I know this is a live launch model and I know it's going to end. I know exactly when it's going to end. So I've emotionally prepared myself for that, but it's not for everybody. And the first time it happened, it was really hard. But yes, this is a mental hack. Yes, for data. People do miss this part, Ashley. People miss this so much. And a lot of times we put our self-worth in our launch. So when we don't hit our numbers, it's like we feel like we failed, but actually we have so much data we can use. So here's the type of data that you want. When you're doing a live launch, you want to analyze it daily. And when you're doing an evergreen launch, I'd say you want to analyze it at least weekly. And maybe it's not even you analyzing it. It might be your team or your staff or somebody. But whoever it is, you want to do it regularly. So there's 2 types of data. One is your words. What did your audience tell you they want? So like what Marlena did. Again, she did her hot seats and she literally took notes and she was like, okay, these are the top questions people are asking me. And so this is what I'm going to make my next content event, my webinar, be about, because I'm listening to what they're saying. Like I thought, for example, like we have a common one for fitness people is like, oh, I thought that what people wanted was to lose weight fast, but actually what they want is just to feel better. And so if I can target my marketing, my webinars about feeling better and having more energy, I might sell more than just saying lose weight, because that's the obvious thing. But it depends on what your audience is actually telling you they want. So you want to take notes on what they're saying, like create a whole doc. In one of my programs, I talk about creating a doc called client wording, where you literally just write down all the words your clients say. So if you meet someone who seems like they'd be your ideal client, you start writing down words you hear them say all the time. The other type is numbers. So that's like the actual numbers tell you where you need to improve. So when people say, oh, I got 0 sales, my question is, okay, what's your other data? And usually the answer is, I don't have other data. Like I just had sales and I didn't make any sales. So like, what data do I have? Well, what was your content event? How many times did you launch your content event? Did you just launch it once? Okay, let's say you have your one webinar. How many people even saw your landing page? Like how many people even saw that you have a webinar? And of those people, how many people actually signed up? So like, for example, this is in lead pages. And we don't actually put our sales with our lead page. So that's why all the conversions are 0. But I think this was a test page, but let's take these 2, for example. Let's say we had 2,900. So let's say we had 3,000 people view our webinar landing page. If we had only, out of 3,000, let's say we had 1,500 people actually sign up. 1,500, 50%, that's a good percentage. We know 3,000 people saw it, and we know 50 people actually signed up and gave us their email and said, I'm going to come to your webinar. So that means our page is fine. Now, let's say we had 3,000 people that visited the site and we only had 100 people sign up. That tells us that whatever we put on the site, whatever words we use, didn't actually resonate with our audience. We thought that our audience wanted to lose weight and we talked all about that. But in reality, all they want is to feel better. So if we change the wording, we might get that percentage back up. Or let's say, we had that many people sign up for the webinar, and now we have 1,500 people signed up, but only 100 people actually came to the webinar. We know the industry average is 30%. So if we can get 30% of people to show up, we're good. If we have less than that, then what that means is we didn't send enough email reminders. We didn't frame them in a way that make people actually want to show up. How many email or text message reminders did we send out? Did people even open them? Like, this is the data that we can see, because a lot of times when people will tell me, like, oh, I didn't get any sales because only, 10 people came to my webinar. And then I look at their landing page and I say, well, only 15 people saw your webinar. So if 10 out of 15 showed up, that's really high. Your problem is you didn't get enough people to see it. So what can we do to make more people see it? Can we partner with people? Can we pay somebody to put on their blog? Like, whatever it is, but there's so many different numbers that we can see where to improve, that if we can correctly analyze and pivot the data, by the time we get to sales, the sales will be fine. But we need to know what to fix, because it might not be the offer. It might be, it might not be, but we have to know based on what they're telling us with their words and what their numbers are telling us. And like I said, people can say all day that they would pay for something, but until they put their credit card in, until they actually click your page, you can't count that data yet. So here's an example. One of my clients from last year, you may have seen her. Her name's Morgan DeBon. She's the co-founder of Blavity, like a big media agency. And just for reference, I'm trying to make very diverse like backgrounds of people. So like the first girl, she was laid off when she started her company. The next guy was already an entrepreneur doing consulting. The girl who was a therapist, she was like working a regular 9-to-5 job before she became an entrepreneur. So whether you have a job, don't have a job, or entrepreneur, working for the man, whatever it is, you can create an online business. All these people have different backgrounds. And when she hired me, what she was launching was something called the Work Smart program. It's pretty much, at the time, it was pretty much the idea was she wanted to help people who already have businesses scale their businesses. So if you already have 4-figure months, you can bring that to 5. If you already have 5-figure months, you can bring it to 6. So we did our whole webinar launch funnel. We did a live launch, and our plan was to put on Evergreen after. And pretty immediately, we did not hit the numbers that we wanted. And here's what we realized. Number one, we looked at the words and we said, okay, people aren't wanting what we're offering because we have enough people showing up to our webinar. We have enough people signing up. So we know that they're interested in theory. But in the webinar, the questions we're getting in the chat are like, how do I know if I have a good business idea? What is ROI? What is this and that? And we're like, wait, we're trying to sell a program to help people scale their business. But these people are asking questions implying they don't even have a business. So we're not aligning like what we want to sell with our audience. That's problem number one. Secondly, our numbers were good getting people to the webinar, but then people would fall off of the webinar and not buy and not stay that long. And of course, it's because it didn't align with what they want. They thought they were going to get help on how to start a business, but the webinar was actually about how to scale a business. So the solution that ended up happening, we don't work together now, but I still talk to her. And from what I've seen, they have a bunch of different funnels and offers. Like they have one for people scaling. They have one for people who are starting a business. They have one for people looking for investors. Like they have more alignment in what the people want, how to pivot with that, and like how to actually pre-sell that into their whatever content event, and that's what it is. But again, this is somebody who has millions of followers, email lists, whatever, and even her, we still had to go through the launch process and gather data. And if we had just said at the beginning, you know what, people didn't buy the program, F it, like we're gonna quit, like obviously she wouldn't have these other income streams now. And even on top of that, our launch wasn't bad. We got so much data that we were able to implement it properly. So just keep that in mind when it comes to like timeline and, oh, I saw this person made this much and this amount. Okay, if you look at Morgan's page, she might even say how much she makes in Work Smart and make it sound like she made a lot because she did. But that's because for the first year, for the first few months, she was figuring it out and testing things. Similar with Danielle Leslie, similar with everybody. No one really just woke up and made X amount in X time. Marie Forleo makes $1 million launches now, 10 years later, with 2 months of intense work. Or Danielle Leslie now scaled her Evergreen launch with a whole entire team that analyzed every single bit of her webinar and put it on Evergreen for her. So in summary, our goal is to use data to pivot and not to quit. And so my question for you, you don't have to go into detail, but just yes or no, do you already have data? Like, do you already have things that people are using, whether it's words they're using or numbers? I'm gonna look in the chat. Oh, Tracy said, we're so used to live launches. Product launches are literally live launch. Yes, I was on a product launch team for a company, and man, it was stress. It was extreme stress. And I remember my family saying, you're making 6 figures a month for this company. Why aren't they happy? It's like, you don't know the stress behind it. Ashley said she launched Mentor Me in November. It failed, no sign up, and you were disappointed. You tweaked, adjusted, updated the landing page, relaunched in June, and launched successfully. Look at that. And my question to you is, what is successfully? Because I would say successfully means you got good data. I think you got good data in both. So what was the difference, I guess? What metric were you using to determine success? Was it revenue? Was it signups? Like, what was the difference for you, Ashley, between the November and the June launch?
I would say it was both. So yes, I think I did collect a lot of data in November around who was clicking on the page and who was engaging with the content, but then like they weren't converting. And they were telling me one thing, but I think it was just an objection that spoke to the fact that I wasn't presenting the value. And so I repackaged the landing page to try to present the value in a more meaningful way, and relaunched, to updated the landing page and then relaunched, like really leveraging the value. And so then successful looked like, a full accelerator, all the slots were filled. I hit my revenue goal. And this launch in June has prepared me to successfully relaunch the program in August, for another successful launch in August.
Nice. Okay, so live launch is your type of launch, and that's awesome. And then my next question to you is, how did you determine? Well, actually, maybe you answered this because you said you already had the data. Because I was going to say, how did you determine what tweaks to even make and what parts to even update in order to make your launch successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was hearing a lot of I don't want to work. So the accelerator is a small group program. It's 5 women in the program, and I was hearing a lot of, oh, I just want to work with you. I don't want to work with, anybody else. I have all these caveats, right? So I can't work with anybody else. But I knew I wanted to change my business model from one-on-one to small group, and so I knew I needed to get into that. To that cohort, that small group cohort. And in between the launches, I also doubled the price. So I doubled the price, and I still was able to sell it out the second time. So I really think it was like positioning the value. And then of course the value has to even be higher for me to double the price and still sell it. But I did that. And then in this August launch, I didn't double the price, but I'm increasing it again. I'm hopeful, that I will successfully launch, which for me means driving my revenue goal and filling the slots.
Nice. Okay, well, shout out to that. Yes, pivoting and not quitting. And yeah, I remember talking to you months ago. Like, yeah, that's a cool story.
Yes, and that conversation was really pivotal to like look at the data, and you were telling me like, what is your conversion? And I really leveraged leaned into my conversion. So right now I'm converting at about a 40%. It's dropping a little bit because I'm raising the price, but I'm doing the work.
Yeah. And yeah, there's so many numbers. And I do remember this conversation. I was like, I don't want to shout you out unless you spoke up, but yes, no, that's so cool to hear that. And yeah, okay. I'm super inspired by that, even for myself. Marlena said, Taylor got me keeping a bank of client words. Such a good practice. Screenshots, text, DMs. Yes. And one thing that I do say is, even though you take screenshots and DMs, I try to have people copy and paste it into a Word doc, because when you're trying to Google search for something, it's easier. But yes, those screenshots, those words. Yes, go Ashley. We never fail. We just learn. Ashley, and she keeps similar screen. Yes, you did all the work. Yes, I'm so happy to hear that you're actually implementing all that. And yes, Marlena said, people spend months testing and figuring it out. Not only do they spend months, they have a team. Like, not in a braggy way, but like, one common denominator between all the people I mentioned is me. Like, they have someone there doing work for them. Like, it's not like they just, like, Morgan didn't wake up and think, like, of course, when Morgan was working with me, she's like, Taylor, I hired you and we're not making sales. WTF is happening. And then we had to figure it out, and now it's working. But people are not doing it on their own. They're not doing it overnight. Like, yeah. No data yet, haven't launched anything though. Okay, so now you can start getting data and start just seeing what is it that people come to you for. That's always like the first place that I start. What do people come to you for in general? And same then for you, Bree. Denise said you have client words and testimonials. Perfect. What metric are you using to determine success? No, that's a whole word. Yay, this helped you get things ready to collect it. Yay, Shayna, I'm so happy to hear that. And then Tracy said, you think you do, but like Shayna, this will help you to collect them. Yes, I'm so happy to hear that. Like, you have no idea how encouraging it is when I do these things, and then somebody comes up like Ashley and says, oh, I actually implemented this and now I have a successful launch. I'm like, what? That's so encouraging. Okay. Higher price tags immediately convey. Yeah, and again, it's not that actually came out of nowhere and we're just like, I'm not making money. Let me just randomly double my price and do nothing. What she said is she realized she needed to increase her value and promote it in a certain way that people understood that value. And I know, I want to say in 2 weeks, Maya's going to talk to you about messaging and like explaining your value. So you'll be covered with that. But yeah, so it's not, the takeaway is not like just increase your price and it'll work. The takeaway is use your data to strategically explain your value and your price, and now you're going to keep going up from there. I also want to be like Ashley when I grow up. Apparently so does everyone. Okay. Marlena said she didn't start adding a Google Doc until later, and you're paying for it. No, the best time to start anything is 20 years ago, and then the second best time is now. So let's see. Oh, Ashley's heading to another call. Okay. See her soon. We're pretty much almost done. So let's see. Data is key. Thanks for everyone. Helpful for the future. Okay. Bye, Susanna. Bye, Ashley. And so, yeah, just to summarize, we're pretty much done here. But like the number one launch mistake that I see is that people think they need to follow some specific launch plan that they found in a fancy course. It's happened many times where people are like, I did Marie Forleo or Amy Porterfield or Abu, Danielle, whoever. I did some 2K, 5K, 10K course, and I did all the steps. I sent out everything on the time they said it, and it didn't convert, and I don't know why. And I'm so stressed because I put so much effort into this. And here's why. When you do those courses, they do work. They're not like people making them up. A lot of people who have those courses are people I work with. I know they work, but they assume that you know these three things. They assume that whatever you're selling, you already know that people want it, which is why it's your job to pre-sell and take inventory of what people are asking for so you can give them what they want. Number two, these courses assume that you already know what you want. What you're doing is aligning with your lifestyle and with your funnel. So if you're taking a course that's like how to do live launches and or a course like how to run ads to your evergreen model, they're assuming that you already know that evergreen is for you and that matches the funnel that you're at. If you're joining their course and you're looking for a live launch, but you're learning evergreen tactics, or if you're joining their course and it's for people who already have a brand, you haven't developed your brand yet, it might frustrate you that their ideas aren't working, but that's because they expect you to already have that alignment. And then lastly, they expect you to know how to pivot. So if Danielle Leslie gives you 10 different templates and says send it at these times, she expects you to know, oh, I'm going to edit these templates to better fit my audience. Or even though she told me to send this at Wednesday at 5 p.m., I know that most of my clients are working from home and they're probably going to look at it more at 10 a.m. I don't know, but they expect you to know these things already. So it's not that you're wrong. It's not that they're cheating you. It's just that they expect you to know these things already or to have a team that knows these and can do it for you. So in summary, here's what we covered. Number one, how to decide the right offer. Essentially, it's by pre-selling to make sure they'll pay for it and by offering them what they want in a content event. Number two, how to make sure your launch fits your lifestyle. You have to make sure that you're at the right place in your funnel for what you're doing and that you're choosing the launch model that actually aligns with what you know you want in your life. And number three, how to make sure your launch is successful. It's literally just taking data and implementing it, which is why when you're doing it live, like Ashley was, you have to take that data and implement it in real time. In her case, she took a few months, reanalyzed the data, restructured her value, and then did her live launch. In other cases, it might be evergreen, where every week you're seeing and updating and realizing things in like a less stressful way because it's over time, but also less revenue, because if you're doing it constantly, it's probably kind of like working out, right? You can do the intense boot camp where you lose a lot of weight or gain a lot of muscle really at once, or you can do maintenance where you don't see a huge change over time, but you maintain like the level that you want for a while. So my question for you guys is, have you learned anything that you can actually implement today? Like you can actually create your client wording document. You can actually make a list of the data you want. You can actually do a 20-minute brainstorm of what you want your brand to stand for, who you want in your audience, or whatever that is. Let's see, what am I missing? I'll have to watch the replay with full attention. Okay, Kiva, no problem. Oh, wait, I missed something. Oh, Kenyatta said that's my need. I think that's my need. I need to explain my value because I don't think people care about design. Shameless plug. At the beginning of this month, I was going to do a relaunch and I was like, you know what? I'm getting all these high results for all my clients. I've never had a client less than 2x their investment in me. Like anybody who's paid me, they've made at least 2 times and usually way more. But when it comes to launching my own stuff, I was struggling a lot. And I actually went to Marlena to coach me through figuring out how to explain my value. And it has literally helped me so much. Like from working with her on just like the messaging and value part, I almost instantly like doubled my income. So if anybody's looking for how to explain their value, I know that we also have a messaging person coming, I think in 2 weeks is Maya, but I mean, I don't know if Marlena is like advertising her coaching services, but if you need help with that, she's your go-to person. Let's see. So that was for Kenyatta, but anyone else, because we couldn't all relate to that. It's your job to pre-sell and take inventory of what people are asking. Yep. Let's see. Okay, Tracy said, is this also applicable to physical product? How do you know when you've launched a product, but it's not quite performing? So it depends a little bit on what kind of product you're doing. If you're doing something like a book or a smaller thing, I'll probably connect you to Marlena or I could even connect you to my friend Kristen to give you a little bit more guidance on that. But if you're doing something that's more expensive as a physical product, or you're doing like an actual launch where you say, here's the date that the product will be released, and I'm just signing up to see how many people give me their card information and prepay in advance, then I do all the same steps. So like, for example, I have a friend who was literally creating a shower head, super random. It's like $1,000 shower head. He's marketing it to high-end hotels and retailers and gyms and all these things. And so he had literally a set date of when it was going to launch, a year from when he started, or when it was going to be produced, a year from when he started, from when he launched. And he literally did all the content events, had webinars, all these things for like major hotels and all these things. And it was the exact same process. But that was a very, very expensive physical product for a very specific niche. If you're doing something that's more mass produced, like books or home goods like my friend, then I'd probably recommend you to somebody else who knows a little bit more than I do. But either way, it's still helpful to have content events to create that brand around it for when you want to expand to higher ticket items. Okay, Vanetta said you're double checking your offer. Tiffany said, much more than one. Yes, I love over delivering my word. I have a daily word every day. My word for today was over deliver. I can brainstorm how I want my physical product. Yes, brainstorm it. And I know you guys have accountability partners or accountability groups within Tribe. Brainstorm it and share it with those people in Tribe. And if you don't have one, I'm sure you can like post in the group and get some accountability partners. Okay, start your client word bank. Yes, we love to see it. Just literally make a client doc and just call it like ideal client words or something like that. Going to work with my audience, being more structured so you can get into that funnel life. Yes, perfect. We love to see it. Okay. How long have you been an entrepreneur and considered successful? Okay, this is a funny question because I haven't considered myself successful for a long time. I don't even know if I would consider myself successful now, which is a whole mindset thing. But I have been an entrepreneur. So I would say I've been a side hustler forever, like since high school. In high school, I used to sell smoothies at my school. Like after school, we didn't have healthy stuff at my school, so I was selling smoothies. And then in college, I was always selling or like part-time jobbing something. I've done Uber, I've done Lyft, I've done salsa teaching, I've worked at a salsa club, I've done all these different things. And then I started running a mastermind part-time. But I would say when I became full-time, like I'm gonna take myself seriously and make this my full income and like this is what I'm gonna do, I would say early 2019, so almost 2 years. But again, I've been making websites and doing launches and doing all these things at the same time for a while. Okay, Tracy said, working on audience, analyzing data. And then Marlena gave some advice about it'll be helpful to design an evergreen launch funnel. Gather data, do a live launch when you know it works. Yeah, exactly. And it's like the strategy that I like to use, and again, everyone's different, but I like to do live launches, and I know they're intense, but if you work with me or you work with somebody else, you have a team, so you can share the intensity with somebody, and then whichever thing works best is what I put on evergreen. So for example, I have a client where once a quarter, we do 3 webinars back to back. We see which webinar worked best, and we put that webinar in our evergreen funnel. The funnel's the same, almost everything's the same. We just change the webinar and change the email slightly. And then we have a team who looks at our emails just in case our data is slightly off, and they change the wording in the emails using our ideal client wording doc. So it's like everyone this year is talking about coronavirus or whatever, so we might reframe it as that. Or everyone's talking about supporting Black businesses. We're a Black business, so we might use that word in it. But overall, the main thing's the same. Okay, so just last thing, I know some people had to go, but if you want these slides, I'll put this in the chat. But if you want these slides, you can just go to this bit.ly link and I'll automatically send it to you. So let's see. Let me make sure if there's any more questions before I put the link there. It's literally just a copy of these exact slides so that you don't have to necessarily watch the whole entire webinar again, but you definitely can if you'd like to. And it's bit.ly/makemovesxbif for Big Idea Food. I'll put this in the chat now. Yeah, so thank you guys so much. Let's see, how much time did I take? A little over an hour. Okay, so let's see. Marlene, are you